Welcome everyone. My name is Brian Quarrie. I'm going to be your moderator today as we discuss the customer impact during and post the COVID-19 experience. I have an esteemed group of industry experts with me, and we will be covering a number of topics that relate to the question in hand. I'm just going to go around the room and ask everybody to introduce themselves very briefly, and then we're going to get straight into the subject matter. Mikko, could you kick us off, please?
Thank you, Brian, and good morning to everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on whereabouts you are. So my name is very Finnish name, Mikko Turtiainen, 20 years with Finnair and in the aviation industry, and I've done a wide number of different matters ranging from sales to revenue management, pricing, as well as cargo. And for the past 5 years, I've been heading up Finnair global sales as well as the brand during our largest growth period, which during this crisis naturally has been quite different. But hope to have a good session, and hello again, everyone.
That's great. Thank you, Mikko. Peter.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm Peter Brennan. I'm the MD of Holiday World. We're a small specialist tour operator based in London. And we currently sell 3 individual websites, which covers villas in the Mediterranean, a newly reduced website for holidays to Israel and the Holy Land. And our main product is selling ski holidays to the USA and Canada, which during the time of the COVID crisis landed as basically the epicenter of the storm, with customers in resort and customers due to travel imminently afterwards. So it's been an interesting few months.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Shiv, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shiv Bhatt. I am responsible for merchant solutions at Visa, where we develop new capabilities based on the needs of merchants in various categories, including travel. I've been with Visa for 8 years, worked across strategy, innovation, payment gateway operations, and prior to Visa, I've been with American Express in New York for 3 years. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to a good session.
Fantastic. Thanks, Shiv. And last but not least, Paulo.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Paulo Salvador, having been in the hospitality industry for 20 years, working for many small and global chains in Germany, in France, in Brazil. I'm originally from Brazil. I'm based in Paris, and since 2 years, I have created my own company, which is In and Out Performance, which aims to boost innovation and distribution technology in independent hotels. And I'm also lecturer on innovation at ESSEC Management School and CMH School in Paris. Great to be with you today here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paulo. Really appreciate it. And whilst I did introduce myself, I actually didn't give you a very quick brief on my background. I'm a payment professional for the last 20 years, currently working with a company called PayTabs in the Middle East on the payment gateway side. So let's jump straight into it. So first question, which I'm going to ask Mikko to answer for us, is really with regards to the consumer experience. So as consumers have had to alter their travel plans during this COVID crisis, the experience has been varied, to say the least. Some have had a very good experience, and some have reported having felt that there are some sharp practices in the industry. So the question really here is, would increased legislation help to improve and unify the consumer experience?
All right, thanks, Brian. It's a really good question. As you know, consumer feedback, we received a lot, and I think the industry has received a lot on this. Maybe a bit of background just to put this in perspective, that if we go back into end of March, if we look at Finnair operations, we've operated about 5% of the network that we have planned, meaning that we've pretty much taken out of our network 95% of the flights that we had originally planned. This has meant quite a bit of cancellations in regards to flights, and the result of this then has been a lot of refund processing. Over the past 3 months, we've encountered about 300,000 refund requests, which equals about a 3-year amount of refunds. We've processed about 160,000, equaling about 250 million in regards to refunds that we've paid out. And we're averaging about 8 weeks per refund, which is slightly longer than the normal. But if we do think of the approaches that the consumer has seen from different airlines, there's been a varied number of approaches. Ones where where vouchers have been even pushed towards the consumer, and others where, what the Finnair approach has been, where we truly give the consumer the option on, do you want the refund or would you like a voucher? And in that sense, being extremely transparent. We have seen refunds being that majority option in what the consumer has been taking, but we have found it extremely important to give the consumer that true option in regards to how they would like to process their flights, either move it forward into the future, get the refund, or then take a voucher for that trip. This past months with this huge number of refund requests that have come in, we've also gone forward in regards to thinking, how can we do this in a better way? And this is one where we do see innovation, and we have put a lot of effort into robotics to get the simplest refunds also processed directly through robotics, not requiring manual process in between. But you really hit the topic on the nose. Refunds has been one of the most discussed areas for airlines over the past months. And I have to say that we follow the NPS, so the Net Promoter Score, very closely to see how that consumer feels about Finnair and basically getting feedback through this channel also. And we have actually seen our NPS score increase over the past months to a 43. So that puts a bit of perspective in regards to Finnair's approach and how we're kind of tackling this situation, especially in regards to payments, refunds, flexibility, and so on.
Great. Thanks for the response, Mikko. I'm going to jump to Peter, slightly different part of the industry, but really at the consumer sharp end. What would you say in regards to this question?
Yeah, obviously the big issue for tour operators and travel agents alike in the UK is the PTR regulations, whereby we're under law due to refund people within 14 days. And in our case, that would mean having almost a quarter of our turnover available, annual turnover, to refund people within a 2-week period. And I've noticed in other countries, I think the lead in Italy and Spain, that the local governments are extending the EU regulations to maybe 4 months. So I don't know whether the UK government will look at seeing whether that 2-week period is fit for purpose. But they've had no appetite so far to make any changes whatsoever. And the travel industry has had to just get on with it as best they could. From my own personal perspective, in a small company, someone communicated with the clients, and we adopted a policy of partial refunds when we got money back from, say, a lodging supplier or from a lift ticket provider. We provided that to them, and then they could log on to their booking on our website and see the status of their booking. We communicate with them via the My Booking link. And then with the airline refunds, we simply took the government bounce back loan, parked it in a different bank account, and used that upfront money to refund clients where we had to, because we're still waiting for airlines. I have to say the airlines got off to a slow start with maybe no refunds whatsoever, and then having to re-ticket by the end of December. But they rapidly improved their practices, and I have to say that we're almost there on the refund procedure with the airlines. So I think from a legislation point of view, I don't think the government, any changes they make to legislation is never really good for the travel industry. It's more consumer. It tightens things up a bit. So maybe if they, through the CA, look at the way airlines who've been, no fault of their own, overwhelmed by the scale of this event, see if they can do anything there.
Thanks, Peter. That's very clear. Shiv, if I can move to you, I consider the scheme's kind of part of, if I may say, part of the legislation framework. So it'd be interesting to see your perspective on this side.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the best practices that Mikko and Peter outlined are what are needed. But a large part of the industry didn't obviously get there soon enough. What we have seen from a network perspective is, and this is what the merchants in the travel industry are also therefore seeing, is an overwhelming increase in the number of disputes. The reasons that are happening are not necessarily logical, but more consumer behavior driven. Because if your flight is either cancelled or there is a voucher being offered and the consumer is not fully aware what that voucher means, how long is it valid? Do I need to take it? Will the travel company that's offering me the voucher still remain when I want to travel? So there's a whole bunch of uncertainty to the consumer, and oftentimes what they have done is just simply picked up the phone and raised the dispute with their issuer. From a network perspective, what we have done, therefore, is to say that, look, to all of our issuers, you cannot raise invalid disputes just because the consumer called you. So we have put in rules which say that the consumer has to have a valid reason. Please reread all the dispute rules around when a dispute can be submitted, and confirm if the consumer has reached out to the merchant to solve the issue, and was the service truly not delivered. If an issuer provides more than 50 invalid disputes per day, then we have our own escalation mechanism to work with the issuer to try and reduce that. So we are trying to play our part there to reduce the burden on the merchants. We have also reduced or actually paused some of our monitoring activity on the number of disputes that a merchant has in a given period of time, etc., which, as you know, in the scheme rules triggers certain compliance requirements on the merchants. So we have paused all that in the travel industry in the hope that we can tide past this difficult period and then get back to it. I think the vouchers have been the most confusing for many people because on the one hand, that is the best way for a travel company to provide back to the consumer an option while maintaining their own liquidity. At the same time, I think consumers have sometimes asked for the voucher and then on the back end raised a dispute with their bank as well. So there's all sorts of complexities when you start getting into the details, and that's what we have tried to manage and put some new guidelines around how this could be done, both for banks as well as merchants in the ecosystem.
Great, great. Thank you. Again, really good to hear your experiences as, if you like, the glue to much of the payment business. And Paulo, again, it would be great to hear your view in regards to the legislation question.
Yeah, I think we have got into a situation on two phases. I think the first phase, which was really when the lockdown came and how this whole industry was confronting with the cancellation. I have lots of friends from OTAs that they say, well, we from one day to the other, we became from a booking machine, we became a cancellation machine. So the industry was well mobilized in order to respond in a proper way. The difficulty that the client they had, the travel they had to cancel his travel, to postpone his travel. So I think that is indeed a need from some sort of regulation on all these aspects to organize that, because our industry, it's very fragmented, especially when we talk about hotels. It's very, very fragmented. So it's very difficult to have some sort of order to react, to respond in such a rapidity, in a level of customer service that the market, the whole industry, and the whole situation face us. But I think it's a very, very good opportunity for us, and I think this panel is an excellent forum of discussions to think about the future and to see how we can invest in our process and some sort of organized method of payment in order to, to respond more quickly to the business need of keeping their cash flow. Because, for example, together, Expedia and Booking.com, they were sort of holding over $6 billion from anticipated cash that the clients they made when booked, and they needed to reimburse them via the hotel. So it was a really, really big confusion that now I think we need to think about in the next steps, how we can centralize the process and then centralize the matter of dealing with all this situation that we will perhaps live in the future. So when we talk about trust, we talk about the future, we need to have some sort of compliance regarding payment.
Right. Thanks, Paulo. I think that's clear. And before I move actually on to the second question, just want perhaps if I could add an additional question, because a number of you mentioned vouchers. So it's interesting, and for very good reason. Vouchers were an offer that consumers could take up and then potentially use when they wanted to then start their holidays or their travel plans. Again, just quickly going around the room, I'd be to know what the feedback was with regards to clients and vouchers. Did they perceive that as a great option? Or actually, did they perceive that, back to my original question, did they think this was a sharp practice trying to keep hold of their cash? Mikko, that'd be great to hear from you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on this slightly a moment ago, but we really did have that very transparent approach towards the consumer, and we did see the majority of the consumer decision going towards getting the refund. So the actual vouchers and amount of vouchers that were actually taken as an option was relatively low.
Okay.
So in that sense, the consumer at the end decided, this was the choice that Finnair took, that we truly want to listen to the consumer and let the consumer decide which option they take. This is the way that we have also been, up until now. Some of the vouchers, we also had tried out the policy that taking a voucher and having a slightly increased amount. So taking the voucher and seeing a 10% increase in the value, but we still did regard and did see the actual refunds being the most desired option for that consumer.
Great. Peter, was your experience similar, or?
Yeah, we operate on about a 60 to 70% repeat business, so we really had to look after our clients because they are very loyal to both our product and the North American ski product. We ultimately didn't issue any refund credit vouchers. We refunded everybody in full, whether it be from a £16,000 holiday to when their holiday was disrupted in resort and they lost one ski day, lift ticket, or one night's accommodation. We got all the money back and we gave it back to them. As I said, we did do in a sort of partial process, so we kept the clients informed and they didn't get it all back in one go. There was a couple of ones where some of the airlines weren't going to refund, and we did issue 2 sort of flight credit notes, but then that money came through eventually. So as things stand, but my experience is the same as Mikko, is that customers were not really interested in refund credit notes. They're booking a specific holiday and that they can't use it, and there was no guarantee to be able to travel in 12 months' time.
Right.
So 99.9%, they weren't overly aggressive about it, but they made it clear that they wanted it back, and our clients were quite happy really in the end. We didn't get any abuse, and only one charge back in the whole period from someone who panicked even before the 14 days had expired. So we don't have much experience of refund credit notes.
Great. And Shiv, you mentioned in your answer that the issue of vouchers, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said that may have slightly confused the issue here.
Yeah, because in the sense that one is from the point of view of the consumer, and other is from the point of view of how, as a network, we have our rules around disputes. For example, if a consumer is offered a voucher, and that's in the case where the airline couldn't fly because the government prohibited that specific set of consumers from flying, then the rules are different. And then if the consumer on top of that takes a voucher, the rights of the consumer to further dispute that or to challenge that if they need to changes again. So it's a complex situation both for the consumer and the merchant, and that's what I was trying to point to. But on the issue of vouchers, I would have loved to see some innovation that's already possible and would have been great to be in place. Like, for example, wouldn't it be great to issue a voucher that can be tied back to the payment card that you used to make the original payment, so that when I have to redeem the voucher again, I don't have to look up my email, I don't have to have a code. So it's a lot more frictionless for the consumer and provides a better assurance and visibility to the consumer that they have been issued a voucher that's usable. The other thing that I was also curious about was, in issuing the vouchers, airlines or hotels could possibly have considered offering some sort of an incentive to use the voucher. So instead of offering a one-for-one voucher, which is $100 to $100, what if they could have said, if you take a refund, you get $100, but if you take a voucher, then you could get $125 worth of money in the future. I think that some interesting things could have been tried out, but obviously there's too much chaos at this moment to be thinking about those things.
Absolutely. We're certainly going to get to the potential innovations questions a little later. Thank you for that. And Paulo, again, you mentioned vouchers and the experience. It'd be, again, good just to put our hands around exactly what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think the topic of vouchers is going to become a real topic in 6 months, because all the airlines, I think mostly the airline industry, I mean, because the hotels, they were sort of, they need to really to reimburse their bookings. I don't think there is the same issue on hotels than you have in airlines. But for airlines, for example, a couple of weeks ago, an American carrier, they just announced that they are carrying on a sort of $500 million provisions on the vouchers they issue. So by all that means in 6 months, that when the clients start to redeem their vouchers, they will need not only to sell, to generate cash for their own operating business, also to allow seats for those vouchers to be redeemed. So I think it's a very good point, Shiv. I think the industry will also evolve in this discussion, and maybe there will be some bridge between, okay, you can redeem your voucher towards points instead of travel. You can redeem your voucher via credit in your credit card. But I think this voucher and this liability and provisions issue will really become an issue of the industry in 6 months. So I think it's a very, very good point.
I still comment on Shiv's point that we did try out with the vouchers. We did try the 100 euros is 115 euros with the voucher, and at least for us, this approach didn't really change the consumer behavior in regards to decision making, and they continued to clearly desire the refund versus the voucher. So, but I agree. I mean, this is definitely the time to try out different things and see what works and what does not, because this will be valuable learning going forward, and kind of, this is the time to also test if you have the courage and they are able to, to try things out.
Absolutely. So speaking about trying things out, so it brings me to my second question, really, which is with regards to the ease of making payments. Shiv in the first instance, but technology has moved on, and there have been a number of innovations around making the payment for fairly complex services and products very, very straightforward. You literally can do that on any medium now, including your phone. And once you've decided to pay, you can click and go, which is fantastic. Yeah. However, that's great, but we've now gone through a situation where actually you need to undo that in some cases. And that process seems a little bit more complex. And I guess the question is, why is it, if I were a consumer, and I've had the same experience, why is it not as easy to unravel the payment with one click as it is opposed to make the payment? So Shiv, perhaps you can help out here.
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, I think, as Mikko was outlining, if there is a way in which merchants can automate some of the refunds processes, then the technology, the policy, and the consumer experience comes together. I think the challenge has been in the unusual situation, which is that the refunds are subject to various types of agreements and arrangements that the consumer has when they make the payment. It's not just about the technology. The technology works. If you want to make a refund as a merchant, the consumer will get notified immediately, and the funds could be back in their account in instantly or in up to 2 days in most cases. The challenge is in understanding what the rights of the consumer and the merchant are in the refund process, and what the needs of the consumer and merchant are in the process. I think, there's a lot of examples outside the travel industry where this doesn't work well, right? So try canceling your gym membership. So subscriptions have always been a challenge, but this has been an unusual situation where as airlines and hotels are scrambling to understand if they can offer the service not now, but maybe in the next month, or is it 6 months? And should they offer a voucher or should they offer a refund? What are the rules governing consumer rights in each of the countries that they're operating in, and therefore what are the legal liabilities that they face? If they decide to refund 100%, do they have enough cash flow today to support 100% of those consumer needs? Or as as one of us was pointing out, if a voucher is offered, then can we support the incoming consumer demand if it comes all together in the next 3 months? So I think there's a lot of complexity in the merchant planning and decision making around how to offer refunds, and how they position vouchers versus refunds or other alternatives in managing the consumer expectations. I think that's been the challenge, and this is the crisis that we're seeing is probably unusual in our own lifetimes, and so most of us weren't prepared. But I'm hoping that this crisis has given us enough lessons where, God forbid, if the next one comes in some form, we will be a lot better prepared in how to handle it.
Great, and absolutely take on board what you say with regards to the technology actually being there. It's slightly more complex. Before I move on to what I would say, and perhaps I'd take myself as an example, many other people had to unravel my travel plans. As I say, the click was great going forward, but just trying to navigate the so again, Paulo, to yourself, what could be improved on that side?
Sorry, Brian, can you repeat the question, because it was I got a lag.
No problem. So the basic question is that the industry, the payments industry, have made payment of fairly complex purchase of products and services very, very simple, literally down to one click. But when you need to cancel or refund, that process is considerably more complex. And isn't it time that we made it as easy to extract your payment as opposed to make your payment?
Yeah, I think there is two answers for this question. The first answer is regarding to the end user, to the B2C approach, and that's going to be a matter of the hotels to end with any restriction and provide the maximum flexibility of the rate whenever the guest is booking via their direct website. They will be sure that they will get reimbursed from what they pay, and this is a very simple matter to deal with from the customer expectations. But one thing that will remain is the complexity behind the B2B scene, which is, all this environment related to multi-currency, the connectivity between the hotels, the tour operators, the OTAs. So this big problem needs to be solved with a one single discussion, where we can put in the table one single payment centralized, one single method of payment centralized, that will allow us, whenever the client books, no matter which channel, they will be able to get his money reimbursed, because flexibility is the word until we invent the vaccine. It's going to be the word mandatory for travel.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Mikko, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, there is still a lot to be done. I think that as it's been said, that it is easier to purchase than get the refund. I think this applies for many things outside of the travel industry. Also, buying a Christmas gift for my son that my son doesn't like, and I try and get that refunded after, the holiday season. I think that, the steps here, I can speak through this through my eyes at Finnair, and number of refunds has taken us to the situation where we've had to develop, and find a way to automate the refund process. There are a number of different type of refunds, being from easy refunds that are just on, a point-to-point flight on Finnair. There are refunds that are then attributed to, multiple airlines, and taking all of these to account. I hope that the day will come where the refund process will be easier, but will it be easier than the purchasing? This remains to be seen, but I do agree that there are still steps to be taken to improve the overall, purchasing experience, be buying or refunding or changing. But technology does have a big part in regards to that experience in the future. And this does also kind of touching on Paulo's point, that how will this drive consumer behavior in the future in regards to buying through an intermediary versus buying, from the supplier themselves directly? I think this will be interesting to see. Packages will be, the tour operator, but individual flight tickets, for corporate flights or leisure flights or so on. It'll be interesting to see how the next 6 to 9 months really does develop.
Great, very good, great. Peter, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, as far as refunds are concerned, I'm really in the hands of the suppliers, and if we can reduce say it's traditionally you've got to pay sometimes 30 days out for your flight ticket or 30 days out for your hotel in advance. If we can reduce those payment terms down a bit, it kind of halves the potential amount of refunds you have to make if anything goes wrong. So we have to try and liaise with our suppliers to get away from this non-refundable business model, pay well in advance, down to a more flexible approach, and that's the way we're trying to reposition ourselves moving forward. Because the travel industry, I'm not personally affected by it, but maybe Shiv could answer this. They are somewhat complaining that when they are refunding people via the credit card facility, they are paying commission in doing that and not actually getting commission themselves. So there's a little bit of disquiet there, maybe not presenting the facts properly, but if they are refunding a client's credit card, then do they end up losing commission or paying commission to the merchant provider, where they've refunded the full gross amount back to the client?
Okay. So I guess in summary, technology is not holding us back. There is some work to be done in terms of the actual travel companies, I guess, and obviously keeping that in line with the consumer rights per country. So there are some potential improvements we can make. We have been receiving, let me see, I've got a few questions. I'm going to read out some of our audience's questions to you. I'm going to direct these just to individuals, if I may, and give us a summary answer. Actually, Peter, this one is for yourself. So the question is, looking forward, are we seeing suppliers offering highly flexible booking terms for holidays next winter in the US and Canada specifically?
Yes, we are. That's the good news. We're members of the Travel Network Group, and they've reached out to our scheduled airline ticket providers to reduce the ticket deadline for, say, IT fares from 30 days to 14 days. So in that respect, the client's element window risk has now gone from 1 month to 2 weeks, which means that if there's a COVID flare-up, the risk is reduced, and the airlines and the ticket providers have improved that in that respect. And also with the hoteliers, we now have from a 30-day model down to, in some places, a 72-hour cancellation model. So we can then go to the market and say, book with confidence, because effectively you can basically get your money back up to 30 days beforehand if everything goes wrong. So we are seeing the suppliers overseas and the airlines improving their terms and conditions to deal with them, which is great.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. This one is for Paulo. When do you think the countries will open the borders for people to enter from other countries, and what safety and visa norms and restrictions are being planned? And I think I'm just trying to surmise the rest of the question. It basically says, considering a lot of the airlines are running into losses, will the prices be higher or more competitive going forward? What's your view on that?
Well, I think regarding the opening of the borders, I think it was very good what Paul Charles had said. I mean, we have lots to learn about, these lockdowns and this travel bubbles and so on. I have no crystal balls. Everybody is a $1 million question: when we'll be able to have the boundaries open. But in fact, it's not only the frontiers, but it's also the confidence for travelers to travel. So, and the confidence is not only regarding, okay, how flexible. It starts on saying how flexible is it's going to be my booking. Can I get this refund without any constraints when I just decide not to go? Until the fact that he is sure that when he finds in the destination, compliance in terms of sanitary practices that will make him as confident as he stays at home, then he'll be able to travel. So I think the first stage is to say, okay, let's open the frontiers and let's bring back the confidence to the travelers to travel. And that's absolutely, I agree with Paul that we need to work together with the whole clusters, hotels, DMCs, airlines, all the players. They need to, to bring confidence to the travelers to travel back again. Regarding the price, I have a particular opinion about that. I think prices for airlines will raise. Maybe Mikko can complete my state, but I think prices will raise because they can control inventory. They can say when we are going to open that flight or we're going to keep closed that flight because we have no demand. So they can control demand, so they can control price. And for hospitality, I think the price will, at the same very first moment, price will fall because hotels are desperate in terms of searching for cash flow. So price will fall in order to attract demand. But I hope that with this price, I hope that in the near future, we are going to have a recovery. I believe in what we say, the lazy L. I don't believe in W. I don't believe in V. I believe in lazy L. And the lazy L will make hoteliers to drop their price to recover their cash flow needs.
Great. Well, as a consumer, let's hope so, right?
I'd love to jump in on the airline, prices, because this has really been an interesting topic. I've heard, professionals from the industry say, yes, prices are going to go up. I've seen professionals in the industry say, no, prices are going to go down. It also maybe might depend a little bit on which airlines are, operating next summer. And, is it hybrids or low cost or traditional airlines? Is it long haul, short haul? If I look at the situation right now, I think, the airlines, as well as everyone in the travel industry, is being competitive. That's how I would maybe, summarize the situation, that overall, year after year, airline prices have been going down globally. And will this change that direction? This is one that remains to be seen. I think airlines, with the losses that they're putting today, costs are one that are being looked at exactly, under a microscope. And every airline is hoping that the yields are there when they do operate. But as of right now, going back to Paulo and everyone mentioning consumer confidence and the trust, high fares, be it for hotels or be it airlines, isn't one that brings also trust into the picture. So I would kind of describe the environment as being, everyone's remaining competitive, and the market at the end of the day will kind of say where that pricing points do end up.
Yeah, partly, if I may quickly add, partly it's also going to be where the demand is going to first pick up. We are already seeing data which shows that domestic travel is beginning to make a comeback. Some of the consumer preferences are beginning to shift, at least in the near term. Many consumers are beginning to shift away from hotels to vacation rentals, perceiving it to be safer. So some of these behaviors and local demand pools, I think, will also define what the pricing, etc., can be at that point.
No problem. Again, thank you all for the feedback. Very interesting, very helpful. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to do a rapid fire last question. Single answer. So we are in a period of adversity. Adversity often brings forth innovation. In kind of one sentence, go around the virtual room. What innovation do you think is going to come from this series of adversity? Shiv, let me start with yourself.
One I already mentioned. I think if there's a way we could digitize the whole refund voucher capability tied back to the original payment instrument, that could make the consumer experience a lot more seamless, and it could help the merchant implement a flexible policy a lot more seamlessly too when the time comes. That could be one of the ways in which to do it. I also see a lot of changes that will come in terms of how payments are accepted. We are already seeing a massive shift away from cash. Travel has been one of the areas where cash has been relatively low compared to retail and so on. But there has been cash in some pools, but even that is beginning to move away. And it's being moving to contactless more and more because consumers are seeing contactless as a more hygienic way to pay. I think many merchants are also beginning to offer the same. But overall, going beyond contactless, I think digital payments will become the norm, and some of the trends that we have been seeing will only accelerate towards in-app payments and the merchant possibly holding card credentials on file so that they could process the payment a lot more easily. These are some trends that I think will possibly come up.
Okay, Paulo, very quickly.
Yeah, I agree with Shiv. I think, first of all, innovation will come from B2B, not from B2C in my industry, in hospitality. Contactless payment, it's going to be a must. We will need to discuss this in the same table, the whole supply chain. I think the front and back integration technology in order to allow, as less contact you can have. So we're going to have a sort of from high-tech, high-touch to high-tech, low-touch. And we have all kinds of interesting APIs that starts to be connected, for how long that room has been cleaned, and that can go direct to your mobile, and to say the guest, 1 day prior to his arrival, we will know how many people has, went into that room to prepare that room and so on. So I strongly believe that innovation will come from B2B rather than B2C in this second phase.
Okay, and Mikko?
I mean, these are really good points thrown out by Shiv and Paulo, but I'll go down a little bit of a different road, and I'll say NDC and distribution. I mean, this is one that when we talk about innovation, we talk about APIs, we talk about the customer end-to-end journey and what they're offered along the different points of that journey. This is where I hope the innovation comes in and truly, in that sense, disrupts the industry and gives the consumer new options that they can do and kind of fulfill during that whole end-to-end journey. So that's what I'm hoping, that this crisis actually accelerates the development of APIs, NDC technology for the benefit of the customer.
And finally, Peter, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there will be a drive to more online capability, both from a sales point of view when clients want to book holidays, but also from what you might term a CRM point of view. If you read the travel press, the number of people say how long it takes to get through to an operator or an airline, they're spending hours even now, 3 or 4 months after the crisis first came about, still trying to get through to make a holiday change, or a client wants to find what's going on. So we as a company will start communicating more with clients where they can log on to their booking portal and see what's going on. And so I think the online shift is going to be a big thing.
Excellent. Thank you. Gentlemen, I think we're actually out of time. I think we're slightly overrun. It's been great. Really appreciate all your contribution today. It's been really, really helpful. To those who are listening in or watching, thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time. Hopefully we'll get to do this again sometime soon in the very near future. And stay safe and stay well. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.